Welcome back to Heart, episode number 116, Becoming Your True Self. In this episode, Mark and I speak with legendary casting director Marci Phillips. Coming from a family deeply rooted in Broadway, Marci uses the wisdom she gained from her experiences, encouraging actors to celebrate their individuality and incorporate it into their work. Marci is an expert in helping actors thrive, and she approaches her work with genuine care and love for all actors. Her perspective can help anyone struggling with their career to feel re-energized and ready to show the world their true self. Before you listen, you've got to grab our Backstage Pass. It is packed with Marci's top tips, insider advice, and additional resources that will give you a competitive edge. You can grab the Backstage Pass by going to podcastbackstagepass.com.
You know how I knew it was Marci Phillips Day?
How?
Because I went to the subway, I walked down the steps, and the train just pulled right up. And this is when I know it's a very special day. And I mean
That's funny. That's funny.
It happened.
Well,
So it's so great to have you here.
it's great to be here. My God, I mean, you're part of my history, and I'm part of your history. So, yay!
I'm trying to keep it like entertaining for you. So I'm going to throw out a name for you because, you know, you've done so much. And I know you've done these like, I don't know the correct name for the multicultural showcases. What is the name?
Oh, no, it's just called the, what's it called now? We changed it so many times. Disney
Discovers.
Disney Discovers Talent Showcase.
Okay. Well, whatever it's called, there's an actress here, Marci, many years ago. And I think, and I would love for you to elaborate about her, because actually she's such a cool woman. Her name is Gina Rodriguez. And over the years, she has referred so many people here. But more importantly, she's such a cool woman. And I just wanted to see if you recall seeing her when she did the showcase, or if she did the showcase.
Well, no, I've been doing the showcase since its inception. This is our 21st year of the Disney Television Discovers Talent Showcase.
You say that 10 times.
I know, right? Oh, it's tongue twister. And yeah, of course. I mean, it was my job in the showcase for many years to, you know, find the talent and work with the talent and all of that. And yeah, Gina, boy, do I remember Gina. Her scene was so much fun, and she was such a delight. And to this day, she is the same lovely human being, has the same beautiful light to her. She's an exemplary human being and an exemplary actor, and I just can't say enough about her. And I'm just so happy that we got to play a little part in her taking the next step in her career. And in fact, now she's doing a show for us called Not Dead Yet, that she's starring in, and it's so much fun. And every step of her career just makes me so happy because she's such a truly beautiful human being. So,
well, I'm really glad we wanted to top this off today because Marci, as you know, you see so many people along the way, and both actors and people in the industry. And when someone can kind of keep that air about remembering where they came from and acting that way, it's just such a joy, isn't it?
It truly is. And I would find that the majority of people are like that. So I think that when somebody gets success really, really early and right away and doesn't know the struggle, because it's like right out of school and they book the big thing and then they're on their way, it can be a bit confusing, and you don't really have that foundation of understanding how grateful you need to be, and how appreciative you need to be about the fact that you are in this lauded place. So I always worry about the people who get it too much too soon, you know.
Well, this leads into, I was trying to read as much as I could about you before today, and in some of your articles in the past with, you've done with like Backstage, etc. this is such an interesting subject, Marci, because you hear this all the time. And you were talking about this so many times. An actor is trying to be what they think the other people want them to be. And, you hear, just be yourself, bring yourself to the table. And it sounds so easy, but it's got to be very difficult to do because so many people, as you've even said, have a very difficult time doing that. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I think that it's easy for certain roles for an actor to say, oh, I know how to put myself into this. But there are those other roles where you're like, I don't quite understand what that means for this particular role. Or some actors might be, I don't really understand what that means. It's not me, and it's a character that a writer wrote. And to my estimation, and this is just my opinion, I feel like it's as if I ask all of those actors to ask a couple of their friends what it is about them that makes them choose to have them in their life. Because we all meet thousands of people within our lifetime, not everybody, but many of us meet thousands of people or hundreds of people. And we have a very finite number of people that we say, you're my friend. I'm not talking about followers or Facebook friends. I'm talking about people who are in your life who you feel close to and who you say you are my friend. And it's because they have certain qualities that you want to have in your world. So I always ask actors to ask their friends, not their family, because as I say, those are people that are stuck with you, people that actively choose to have you in their life. What is it about you that makes them choose to have you in their life? Because those are the same qualities that will make the producer fall in love with you, that will make the audience fall in love with you and want to follow you. And not that you have to put all of those qualities into everything you do, but some of them, because, I've known extremely famous people and I see them in everything they do. I don't care if they are playing a historical person who lived. I still see them because they're using their vessel. They're using themselves. So their version of this historical person would be as much research as they do, et cetera, et cetera. It's still their version of it. And so you're always using yourself anyway. So when it comes to roles in like a TV series that are recurring or a series regular, the writers have to write for you. And they don't know who you are until they really get to know you and they've hired you. But the audition is the first place where the writers get to see, you have this kind of sense of humor, or, oh, you have this kind of empathetic heart, whatever it is. If everybody just did the audition the same way as it is on the page, that would not be, that would not tell us who is going to be a star out of a series, because stars are people who understand how to take their personal charisma and their special sauce and inject it into what they do. So we need to see that in the audition.
Well, one thing that has always been such a nice bond between us is you always have seen since day one the value in your classes in an actor being assigned material that's not from an acting teacher, but someone who, in your case, now this is really rare, someone who has the gift of teaching, but also who's giving them a recent body of written material that, let's just say, is pretty current from a television script, where they're actually able to only have a small period of time, 2 or 3 days, sometimes maybe even one night, to prepare it. And no matter where their training comes from, having to master that nuance of making that come to life in a short period of time. And I do feel that you've always seen that value, and you've been always able to impart to the actor just how to deal with that limitation as far as not very much time, but needing to do what's possible to make it come to life.
Well, television is a kind of a quick medium. It's not like theater where you could have months of rehearsal. It is quick, and it's just a muscle that you have to understand what is the most important thing here. I always feel like, well, if you have a choice, if you have a very limited time, like let's say I'm working my catering job and I'm not home until 2 a.m. and my audition is due the next day and I don't have a lot of time, I say what's the most important thing is to make us see who you are. And I always feel that I need to know you better after your audition than I did before your audition. And this is just me. You ask somebody else to be like, no, become the character. Take that ball and run with it. You do you. For me, I'm always, from personally knowing a lot of actors who are very successful to actors that are just starting out and struggling. Again, I have found time and time again that the ones who tend to make it the farthest, so no matter how long it takes to get there, are the ones who know how to inject themselves the things that are attractive about themselves internally into almost anything that they do.
It's funny, Marci, when like the first time I set foot in Paris, France, I felt like a foreigner. I didn't know the language, and I guess what I'm getting to is, but then, you get the experience, the land, and you start to love it and you feel more comfortable. So back to you, you have your own story to tell. You can't inspire unless you've had your own story. And I love your story. And is there any way you could just share a little bit about how you got into this business?
Well, I was born into it, so it's not like I can't take credit for getting into this business, or I can't say, well, this is a moment when I decide. No, I was born into it. My dad was a Broadway musical actor. He was in the original Guys and Dolls and Damn Yankees and Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And my mom was a Broadway dancer. And this is really all I knew. I mean, I grew up like sitting on Judy Garland's lap and Zero Mostel. And so obviously and my dad was trying to teach me how to read as quickly as possible as a toddler. So he'd always have someone to do his signs with him. So, it was inevitable that I would be in this business in some way, shape, or form. And I was an actress when I was a kid. But when I was about 10, these kids were playing airplane with me. They were pissed off that I was an actress because this girl wanted to be an actor, and she was angry because I was doing it. And so she said, let's play airplane. And she took me by one arm and one leg, and she threw me around and she let me go. And I went into a stone wall head first. And I was left with something that they call dystonia, which my right side is just neurologically screwy. So
because of that, threw you into that wall.
Oh yeah, from that. Yeah.
Whoa.
So by the time I was 10, this has just been the way that it is. And I consider it, honestly, you can tell what I'm about to say. I consider it one of the great gifts of my life, because when I was in the hospital, the kid to the left of me and the kid to the right of me didn't make it out. And the doctors said, you can't leave until you can walk. And my not being able to walk had nothing to do with the injury. It was because they were giving me so many tests, and I had all these needles put into my legs, so I couldn't walk. And they said it would be about 2 weeks. And so that night, like a Lifetime movie, my little 10-year-old self said, I hate the food here. I'm getting out of here. So I dragged myself up and down the hallways all night. And in the morning, when all the doctors came, did their rounds, I said, look, and I hopped out of bed and I walked up and down the hall and they go, okay, you can leave. That kind of set the tone for my life. I mean, I don't know. My mom tells me I was always that way even before that. But for my knowledge, that set the tone for my life to say, never say never. And I won't give, I'm happy to let go if something can't happen, but I'll be damned if I'll say it can't happen until I know it can't happen. And that kind of really just changed everything for me. I became very philosophical, like, duh, and very appreciative of and grateful for every day, and understood at an early age what it was to face mortality. And so every day to me is a gift, and I have no idea what I would be thinking or who I would be if that didn't happen to me. So that's my long-winded story of that.
Well, it's actually not over because, the through line here has been where there's a will, there's a way. I was referring when I was talking about the business, and you don't just show up to ABC and say, hey, I was born into the business. I'm going to get into casting. Let me have a job.
Well, that's true. Well, I when I was old enough to get the hell out of the house, what did I do? I married an actor who became a very, very, very big actor, very, very respected. I don't say his name because I want to respect his privacy. But for 14 or 15 years, I was with him, and I was thrust into a world of about big actors. And this might give away, but his mom was very big in the business. And so when he and I divorced, she loved me tremendously. And so she said, you should be a casting director. I'm going to have you be an intern somewhere, because that's the way that you do it as a casting person. You don't just say, hey, I have all this knowledge. I know all these people. I've been coaching actors that are hugely successful for years. Make me a casting director. They're like, bye, So there's really no way in except interning and working your way up. And I was fine with that. I was more than thrilled. So I was living a few blocks from where a specific network was. And so my mother-in-law just said, hey, back then interns worked for free. And I was like, sure, I'll work for free. And so I did. And I just set about making myself invaluable. I mean, I said yes before the question would come out of their mouth, because it's what I was doing for free anyway, was coaching actors and loving and taking care of actors' psyche and helping them along the way. I did that for free forever. So this to me was just like, oh, okay, this is just an extension of it. And I made myself invaluable. And when I said one day, I actually need to get paid for this, they found a way. I worked for the most phenomenal woman on God's green earth as a casting director, Alexa Fogel. Phenomenal woman and phenomenal casting director. And she was my mentor. And she and I had the same kind of standards of excellence. And so we remained lifelong friends, and she took me in and found a way to hire me. And so I just worked my way up from there with no intention of anything. I had, again, part of my childhood makes me think tomorrow, what's tomorrow? All you have is the present. So I was just happy every day, and just, I found myself, immersed in casting.
Hey, it's Brian. I'm dropping in on an important announcement. What you need to know is you have more control over your career than you think. The thing standing between you and the career you want is your connections. And that's where One-on-One Next Level comes in. If you are not a member yet, you can apply to join at oneononenextlevel.com. Press pause and do that now. If you are already a member and you are ready to get back on track, we want to invite you to book a strategy session with us led by myself personally. We will help you prioritize which classes make the most sense given your career goals. You can find these under the Resource Hub in your account portal. We can't wait to hear your success story. Now that you're at, a much, still casting, but a much, larger scale in terms of being at a network, there must be, different challenges that you have to deal with now that, maybe you didn't have to deal with on the independent side. Can you just share
I was never independent. I never did independent casting. I mean, I would cast off-Broadway shows, and I cast an indie film that went to Sundance, but that I would never call myself an independent casting director. I cast things for free, and I did things, but I wouldn't say an indie casting director. I don't find any challenges. I mean, this is very boring because I love who I work for. I love what I do. Any challenges are simply, the frustration of maybe seeing people that are so enormously talented taking longer to hit their next level than I would like, because there's so many people that I just think are insanely brilliant, and I'm like, when is it going to happen? And there's only so much a casting director can do, and sometimes the producers are closer to you, and sometimes you don't know the producers. So, but that's the business. That's life. It's like, it's okay.
That's so interesting because you've done some videos for our new members, and I watched them, and one thing that has really stuck with me is when you tell them, you're like, it can be, this industry can be so frustrating because you feel like you've done everything, and it hasn't happened. But that same frustration there's another side to that coin where tomorrow it could all come together, and you could all of a sudden, for not for no reason, but for that same no reason why you're not successful, you could immediately land a series, and your career could take off. And
well, I think it's all perception. I mean, I think probably what you're referring to is my thought that if you think that this business is shitty, can I say shitty?
Yes. You can curse, you can say whatever you want.
Okay. So to my mind, it is all perception. If you think that this business is shitty and you can't catch a break and it's impossible to get to the next level, you're 1,000% right. But conversely, if you think this business is magical and anything can happen tomorrow and your wildest dreams can be exceeded, you're 1,000% right. So to me, it's all your perception. I mean, everything in life is perception. You can't control things, but you can control how you think about them. And so if you think of this business as terrible and, then sure. But if you see this business as quite beautiful and magical, then sure.
And then that's where there's a will, there's a way comes into play.
Yeah. I mean, look, doesn't mean that, if you're persistent and you've got the will, that means that you're going to be successful in this business. That doesn't mean that. What it means is you will get as far as you were meant to get. And, a lot of people shift their career. A lot of people after 5 years of, banging their head into the wall, they say, hey, I want to be a director, or I want to be a casting director, or I want to go into development, or I want to, some people or I want to, knit sweaters. It's following your bliss and understanding that you're always evolving as a person, and what you wanted before, you may not want today. So don't drag yesterday's story into today, unless you're sure that this is truly what makes you happy and not just an old story that you're telling yourself, So I don't know that I would say necessarily where there's a will, there's a way. I'd say where there's a will to be happy, there's a way to be happy.
Well, you know what, Marci, it's a perfect time to talk about how did you start to think in terms of coming up with the book, The Present Actor? because it's a practical and spiritual guide to help you enjoy the ride. And what I actually mean by where there's a will, there's a way is if I've ever wanted something in life, you don't have to like push a round peg in a square hole, because that never works. But you go where there's flow, and you don't go where there's no flow.
That's it?
Let's hear about it. Let's hear about The Present Actor.
I wrote that book because I mentor so many actors, and a lot of them would say to me, damn, I wish I had something that I could bring home and read in the middle of the night when I need some whatever. I need help with navigating something. And so I said, well, okay, I'll just write it up and I'll just, photocopy it and I'll, hand it out. And they were like, some people were like, but then you'd have to know the people and hand it to them. So shouldn't you be writing a book? And I was like, okay, but there's got to be stuff out there that helps actors emotionally. I mean, of course, there's so many books, from Michael Shurtleff's Audition, which is, of course, like, the great one. Yes.
Stop you for 1 second, because in my opinion, your book compared to that book, and I've read that book a couple times, and they say it's a great book. I say it's a little confusing, the opposite. What I love about your book, and I hate to do this, but what I love about your book is, and I always tell the actors when they were live and coming into the orientations, it's so practical. Someone like me who has reading issues can understand it. There's no confusion.
I wanted it to be as if you and I went out to tea and I just talked to you for like 3 hours. That's how I wanted it to sound. My editing process really sucked because I was like, well, this is the way I talk. So I don't care if something is, off or whatever, because I wanted it to sound like me, like purely me. And I didn't set out to write the book. I set out to find a book for actors to say, here's how you can navigate the emotional demands that you put on yourself and that the business puts on you. Here it is. But I couldn't really find anything. There were a couple things that were very an old phrase, new agey. And look, who's more new agey than me? And I thought they were too new agey. So I'm like, so I was like, well, and then there were the practical books, but I'm like, but there's nothing that really addresses the challenges that any performer goes through in this business in terms of internal struggles. And so I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll just write it myself. And so I did, and I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do with it. So I self-published it because I was like, yeah, I could bring it to those places that have those publishers that do the niche entertainment books, but I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do with it. So I just published it myself, and I didn't advertise or anything because I'm like, actors will find it if they want it. If they don't want it, good. It's like, whatever. But it has lasted quite a bit because there's just, again, it's like going out with me. It's like going out with me for coffee or tea or water.
Because Marci, like so many practical things that you've said really have stuck with me. One of them is, what you said, which you would think a lot of people would know, but they don't. But this helps coming from you. For instance, if there's a callback and an actor comes in with a script in their hand and they keep on looking down versus the actor that has the script in their hand but doesn't have to look down so often, really gives you the understanding from being able to look at the reader in the eye pretty much most of the time. It's really showing the casting person, just the amount of work or what work the actor has put into it. It makes so you pretty much say, if you can, yes, bring the script in with you, bring the set asides in with you. But if you don't have to look at it so much, it's going to make an impression. And that just something like that.
Well, here's the thing. It's whenever we're putting you on camera, we're looking at you as if you're in the show already. So if you have a page and you're constantly looking down like this, well, it takes us out of what you're doing. It takes us out of us seeing who you are, because we're just seeing, oh yeah, you're an actor who's constantly looking at the page, who either didn't do their homework the way they should, or did do the homework the way that they should, but their nerves kick in. So you use that page as your security blanket, instead of using it as your safety net. And we want the page in your hand, or whatever in your hand, because nerves are going to kick in and it's just going to fly out of your head that you did know backwards when you were home and you did do your homework. But we don't care if you look down once in a while, and I don't care even if you're looking directly at the reader for whatever period of time. I want you to recreate reality, because that to me is what we're doing. We are heightening situations just in terms of plucking them from life and putting them on screen and saying, this will illuminate something about life and about relationships. And so sometimes that involves looking at the person. If you're in love for the first 3 months with that person, nothing else exists. But then after the 3 months, life starts to come back in. You're looking at your phone as you're talking to them, whatever. But I want to feel when I'm watching you, I don't want to see the best actor in the world in front of me. I want to forget I'm watching an actor altogether. And the only way that can be done is for you to understand what it is that is important, which is, who are you? That's all. Who are you in your life? And how does this fit into the world that we're in, the doctor world, the lawyer world, whatever world it is? Because I feel like people will rewrite things for you if they fall madly in love with you and you aren't maybe the exact vision that they thought of. But if they're in love with you, there's no rules. That's the biggest thing I'd say. There are no rules. And I think anybody who tells you that there's rules in life, let alone in this business, is, in my estimation, incorrect. Because every rule is meant to be broken. There's huge success stories that come from people breaking a rule. All you can say is what is true most of the time. You can say that, but you can't say this is empirically true or I'm an expert. I mean,
you almost just read my mind. That's actually what I was going to bring up, as I think one of the reasons why your classes here are so popular, and I know from experience that, and you're such a popular teacher, is because unlike so many other, not even just casting directors who teach, but even acting teachers in this business, we interviewed Wendy McKenna for our podcast, the other day, and she was just going on about how even with self-tapes these days, you take those classes or those seminars, and it's, don't do this, don't do that. There's this rule. But, here's a self-tape from someone who did book, and they actually, broke all the rules, but still don't break those rules. And, and actors are so confused because they're saying, wait, this guy broke all the rules and booked the job, and this is, you're saying the best tape, but in all of your classes, you're saying don't do this and don't do that. And I think that's why your classes are such a standout, because you don't try to force a cookie cutter onto how to make it in this business.
No, I tell actors, anything that I ever say to you, just silently tack on usually after my sentence is over. Because all I can say is what is usually true a huge percentage of the time. There are many things that are usually true. That does not mean that it's always true. And again, saying expert, you name any profession, mathematics, anything. Yes, there's people who have more experience and who know more than the average bear, but they will even disagree with each other. So, and, take that to medicine, take that to everything. So if you have disagreements within the experts, then
Marci, you know what? That to me is one of the most special things about this business. And speaking of breaking the rules, you know, because I'm with you on that. I'm a big fan of, you know, you don't break the rules just to break the rules, but sometimes it pays off. So I'll give you one that I don't know if we've ever spoken, but Jamie Hector was an actor here, and he was speaking to me about his frustration at the time. He didn't have an agent, and he was really trying to figure out his way to break into the business. And it just happened to be that I told him, I said, you know, there's this woman named Alexa Fogel who happens to be casting a show that you just might be right for, Jamie. And he goes, yeah, I know, but it says don't call, don't stop by, don't. I said, yeah, no, that's a rule. Don't stop by and don't drop off your headshot. I said, but if you go there and you drop off your headshot and she sees you, I mean, let's look at the worst that can happen. She might call the police and then you'll come and get arrested and probably serve 20 years in jail, or you might have nothing to lose. And he did it, Marci. He went down there, dropped off his headshot. She did call him in. And I don't know if you know, obviously he went on to get on the show.
Yeah. De Niro used to do that.
Yeah. So it's breaking the rules, but you know, it does. And once again, I'm not saying everybody should do that,
No.
but it's just one of the many examples.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true. The world is littered with examples of people who broke the so-called rules. But you're right. That doesn't mean that everybody should do it or it works for everybody, because the you know, they could have called the police too.
No, and then Marci, you know, like some actors who choose to write for themselves. I mean, you know the story of Sylvester Stallone. Like he wrote Rocky. He was offered $350,000 for it. He had no money, and he turned it down. He said, "Unless I can star in it, you know, I can't sell it." And then we were talking to Chaz the other day, Chaz Palminteri. Same thing happened to him, and it's just you know, where they said, "We want to buy your script, but we want to get a known actor." And so how many times have you heard the story where because the actor really believed in themselves, they held their ground until they accomplished, you know, elevating themselves?
And look, that has happened numerous times, and numerous times they've screwed themselves by doing that.
Wow, that's right. Can you give like one example?
Yeah, can you elaborate?
I'm not going to name names.
Yeah, but you're right. But once again, it's you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
It's true. It just depends on really. It's everybody can only answer that question for themselves. There's some actors that are like, you know what? I'd love to be the star of this, but if they want to buy it and they want to get, you know, said name actor in it, and this becomes really huge, fine by me. And then there are those actors who are like, no, I wrote this for myself and the Stallone version of it. And this is mine. And I don't care what you offer me. This is mine. And everybody just has to answer that for themselves. It's really case by case, you know.
So for right now, Marci, what makes you tick at doing what you do?
Oh, this is the absolute joy of my life, to be there to help any actor understand their worth, and to, my God, well, you know, obviously to play any part in giving them the opportunity that gets them to the next level. That's fabulous. But to me, it's just as valuable to be there like an emotional support being, emotional support human. Because again, there's this business can be extremely scary for a performer, because they see people on the other end as, you know, I wouldn't say, well, how do I put this? I think actors see people on the other end as frightening, as a wall to get past. And if I can play a part in showing actors that many of us are very nurturing and very loving, and only want the best for them and will fight for them, it makes them a little bit more comfortable the next time they go in. And even if they're going in to a room that's cold, at least they don't feel like everybody's that way, So I think anything I can do to help lighten that load a little bit, that's my reason for being.
Nobody does special programs like One-on-One Next Level. It's where we really help actors shine.
I'm Emilio. I signed with my Southeast agent right after the Atlanta trip, and now I'm auditioning several times every month. And I almost didn't do the Atlanta trip because I thought it was just another cash grab. I can tell you from experience that it's not. That's not how One-on-One Next Level rolls. And here we are 6 months later, and I already booked my first job with my Atlanta agent.
I'm Rebecca, and the Bridge program demystified the industry for me. It gave me the platform to get off book in under 10 minutes. I met 60 new artists that are now all a part of my community, and I even signed with a manager. I have never walked away from a program so confident in my abilities. I'm so grateful for One-on-One Next Level.
My name is Capenna, and I can finally call myself a working actor after participating in the LA Super Showcase. I had just moved to LA and I felt stuck. I came across the LA Super Showcase, and let me tell you, it was a life-changing experience. I signed with an agent, and since then, I've been auditioning for series regulars and booked my first TV job. I finally feel like I made it to the next level, thanks to One-on-One Next Level.
In the next 12 months, One-on-One Next Level will host 27 special programs bringing you unmatched, exclusive access to industry connections. Special programs aren't just a one-and-done class. Instead, they're designed to accomplish in a weekend what it takes most actors months, even years to do. So whether you want to get repped in a smaller market like Atlanta, bypass casting directors and connect directly with TV showrunners and decision makers, or spend a weekend meeting a bunch of musical theater industry professionals in New York City, you have to become a member to be eligible to sign up for our special programs. To apply, go to www.oneononenextlevel.com. We can't wait to hear your success story.
We had 3 different guests so far, Kathleen Turner, Chaz and Wendy, and they all said the same thing, Marci, which is really surprising. We were asking them about training, and pretty much in different ways. Brian, feel free to chime in. They pretty much all said, I said, well, who would you give the credit to in your career about, for studying that really helped you get there? And they all said, the biggest credit goes to the act of doing. We would not have gotten anywhere with our acting without the act of just getting out there and doing it. Brian, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, and they're all in their like different versions. They were pretty much like, yeah, we like there was training, but like it, once again, like rules or like cookie cutter, or they were trying to put me in one direction, and just from the will and perseverance and wanting to make it work. And Wendy mentioned a little bit of like beginner's luck, like you don't know the restrictions, so you go for it. From that, they had success.
Any thoughts on that, Marci? What you've seen as actors as far as training versus, what is there anything you've, you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah, again, personal to each individual, the answer. Some people really need, if nothing else, just the grounded foundation of feeling that they've got specific tools that they've been trained in to help them in situations on set. Other actors, that would muck them up, and because they've got their way of doing things, and their way of doing things is quite unique and spectacular. And it's just so specific to, I would never say you need training. I would never say you don't need training. It depends on the actor. Some of the greatest actors I know had no training, none. But some of the greatest actors I know did have full-on training. So it's as individual as there are human beings. The one thing that really I would like to just dispel, and whoever's listening here, they already know this because they're actors probably usually, but I don't like You don't like it with anybody. Would anybody ever say it's a good idea to lump all of this category of people into one place and say they fill in the blank? We're all so individual. And so a lot of times I hear, well, actors, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, huh? You're talking about an enormous amount of human beings who all come from different places and different backgrounds and different upbringings, and their talent comes from different places. How can you possibly say all actors? That's why a lot of times when actors say to me, well, how do casting directors feel about it? And I'll say, well, to me, that's almost like saying, well, how do actors feel about it? It's like we all come to it from different places. Every casting director becomes a casting director from a different mindset, a different trajectory. They handle how they run their room or their business or whatever. Everybody does it in their own way, and there is no one way. I wish I could make it easy for people and say, yes, there are rules, and this is what everybody does. But that's not true at all. And I didn't even know that, and until I got into casting, I was even under the impression, and for God's sake, I've been in the business my whole life, and I was under the impression that, well, you have to do it this way. And then I was told one day, you can do whatever you want. I was like, oh, I can? Okay. And that made me literally fall in love with it, because if I can do it my way and I can take care of people and nurture them while they're auditioning and have that in one package, that makes me happy.
Brian, before we conclude, anything?
And Marci, I know even before March of 2020, the industry had been changing a lot, but definitely in the last 2 years, things have really changed a lot. I'm just wondering, if we could end on if you any parting, if you could tell any of our listeners, the majority of whom are actors, just anything during this time to, keep them inspired, because, there's inevitably with all of society, there's just a lot of malaise, and, and some people are like, is it even worth it to, to keep doing this? Do I really want to, work at a bar in New York City and, and go after my dreams? And I feel like things are, there's a little bit of optimism and, inspiration coming back a bit. But the purpose of this podcast really is to help inspire and re-inspire. And just if you could, factoring in the last 2 years, any advice and inspirational words for our listeners?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of actors are upset that they're not in the room anymore, and really won't be for the foreseeable future. Who knows when? And a lot of actors miss that. And again, it harkens back to my talking about being grateful for the things that you do have as opposed to the things you don't have. And to me, when I first heard that, oh no, we're going to have to just really have self-taping for a long time, I was like, well, this is a disaster. I mean, I want to not only be able to adjust the actors in the room and play with them in that way, but I want to be able to hug them. And, that interaction to me was crucial. And I was like, no, not going to work. And very, very, very quickly, I changed my mind, because I saw very quickly, oh, wait, we can see 3 times the actors that we did before, number one. So it lifts the opportunity greatly in numbers for actors to be seen on things. And as far as the overused word of self-empowerment goes, what's more beautiful as an actor than to be able to control what your audition is going to look like, how you're represented? I mean, it's all up to you. I mean, you can do it 5,000 times at home and send the 5,000 in first take. You can do it once. You can put your sides in a place where you can see them and pretend like you're talking to the reader, but really you're reading your sides because you don't understand or just couldn't get down, not understand, you couldn't get down the lingo, of something that's like lawyer lingo or doctor lingo, whatever it is. You can control who you're reading with, so many things that you couldn't do before. And actors get hired the same amount of times. It's not like, oh, you're at a disadvantage. And a lot of actors think maybe I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not in the room. And I don't find that at all. If a casting director needs to work with you because they love you for it, but it's not as simple as making one adjustment and telling you to do it again, which happens all the time. But they can always have a Zoom session with you and do it that way. So there's always a way to get the best of both worlds. And the other thing that's great in terms of the last couple of years is diversity and inclusion. It just keeps going down that correct track. And it's beautiful. People, I'd say like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, were like, well, is this just going to be a thing? And then it's just going to go back. And I was like, oh, once a door is open, the door is open. But now everybody is seeing that that's true. And so there's just so much opportunity now. Nothing is perfect. Of course, nothing is perfect. Nothing in the universe is perfect. It's like, the Chinese teacup, where they say in ancient China, they would take a porcelain teacup and purposely put a crack in it because nothing can be perfect. And so, that's okay as long as we're going down the right road.
Marci, we've said this many times, but if you weren't a casting director, you really would be a master teacher, not just of acting, but also of life. And your mindset. Your mindset. When you come into a room, like I said, for some reason, the train always shows up for me when I get on the subway. It really does start with the mindset. But you've contributed so much to the actors who come here and to wherever you go. And we just want to thank you for not only being here, but for doing what you do.
Well, I love you. And that, I've been with you for like, almost 30 years, maybe not exactly the 30 years, but close to it. Because, this is the place where, actors are treated in a way where you're not just a number. And every class that I've ever had with you guys, there's amazing, amazing talent there. And I don't think that that's just an accident. So I thank all of you for that.
Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done it yet, grab the Backstage Pass. You've got to get the Backstage Pass. There's behind the scenes footage. We've taken the biggest takeaways from the episode and written them down for you. There's also tools and resources to help move your career forward. It's the easiest way to turn this podcast into a tool for your career, as opposed to something you just listen to as you're doing the dishes.